Good afternoon and welcome to Teen Time. I'm Lorie and I'm the teen librarian at Manlius Library. Today we're going to make stained glass paint. You'll need a few different things for this. You'll need some white school glue, preferably in a bottle with some room to add some paint for it. This is how you're going to trace the outline for your stained glass picture. You also need clear school glue. It can be Elmer's, it can be generic brand, it can be any kind you like, but for the stained glass effect, you want clear glue. Otherwise it'll come out cloudy like the beach glass that we made a couple of weeks ago. You also need some acrylic paints. I'm using black to go with the white school glue to make my outline. And then a bunch of different colors. I have some in tubes, I have some in bottles, but any acrylic paints will do. Something to mix your paints in. And then something to paint on. I'm using a piece of glass that I took out of an old frame. You can use any clear glass or plastic. It will work. You could even use a clear folder insert, the plastic clear folder inserts, anything at all. To trace your outline, you can freehand some pictures, which is what I did. You can also use a favorite coloring book page. You can print something off the internet. You just want something that's a general outline so that when we slip it under the glass or plastic, you'll be able to see it and trace it to make your outline. I also have a bottle. I'm gonna test and see how the stained glass looks on a pretty little bottle. You also need some water. I have mine again in a solid mason jar so it doesn't spill. And then brushes. Any kind of brushes. You're going to want some smaller brushes for this one and also some larger ones for filling. And newspaper, of course, to put down to protect your workspace. Okay? I will let you gather all of your materials and we'll meet back here in a couple of minutes and we'll get
Okay, welcome back everybody. I've gathered the supplies, covered the table with newspaper, and as you can see, I've also laid down some plain white paper. It makes it a little easier to see the drawing through the glass for when you're going to trace on your outline. This project is going to be a two-step project with some time for drying in between. The drying time after we do our outline is very important. Otherwise, everything will just blur in together. Okay, so to start, we're going to make our outline paint, and for that we use our white school glue. I'm going to open it and add just a little black paint. As I said, acrylics work really well for this. And I'm going to just shake it up. I also have some disposable chopsticks from takeout that we can use to stir up if we need to. And it looks like we might need to. So let's open that back up. And stick our chopstick in there and stir that up. You want it to look nice and solid black. The reason we do the outline this way is so that it's kind of raised, like the lead would be on an actual legitimate stained glass window. So it's stirring up nicely. You can see it's looking a little gray. The reason we use white glue for this one is we don't want this to dry clear. We want it to dry nice solid color so it looks like the lead in a stained glass window. It's a little gray. I'm going to add just a little bit more black paint, because we do want this one to be nice and solid. Okay. It looks pretty solid. Dangerously doing this over the glass. Okay. So I'm going to set that aside and clear the cover of any glue that might be dried from previous uses. Put the top back on. Give it a couple more really good shakes. The glue on the inside is actually black, even though it still looks fairly white and streaky on the outside. Okay. And then, oop, I've got a little bit of a dribble. And I, of course, didn't bring a cloth. So, wait right there. I'll be right back. Got a paint cloth. Okay, so we've got our paint mixed in with our glue. On this empty spot over here, we're gonna test it just a little. We've got some glue coming out. It's not very black. And there we go. Okay. And then all you do, I've got, as you can see, I've got my glass with the pictures that I've traced, or that I freehand drew. You could use a coloring book. You could use something you printed from the internet. You can do just random designs on it. You could freehand it, or as I did, I just drew pictures. I have a dragonfly, some flowers, and a bumblebee. And I'm going to use this to outline my pictures. So we're just going to do that. And some of the smaller ones are going to fill in, as you can see, like the head of the dragonfly did. And then this takes a little bit of a steady hand. There's that. But you want to make sure you don't have broken lines. Because this is actually going to hold the colored stained glass paint in and stop it from mixing together. So just fill that. There we go. Whoop, and go down the body. Now remember, you're tracing. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so there's my dragonfly. Looks pretty much like a dragonfly. Let's maybe do some flowers. One there. Okay. There's that. This flower's kind of little, so I think I'm not going to do that flower. I'll do the stem. And I'll do the leaf. Okay, and then maybe instead of doing the bumblebee and the little flower, I'll do some freehand. So we'll maybe do the swirl. And then cut through it so that we have sections to color. Okay. solid glue. There we go. That's a little better. Okay. If your glue gets clogged, just as you would with any other, just try to get the clog out. There we go. Okay, that'll be pretty. And then maybe up here, we can do a heart. Okay, and we'll do another swirl. Just because I like how that one came out. And cut across it. That way you have sections and it looks like an actual stained glass window. You've got little sections that we'll put different colors in. Okay? All right, now you've got your design all drawn out on your glass. The next step, I'm just clearing the glue off there. The next step is to let it dry. That's very important. This has to dry completely before we can add any of the colored stained glass. So I'm gonna go let this dry. You go ahead and do yours and let it dry completely. And we'll meet back here when that happens for some colored paint. Okay, we'll see you in a little bit. Okay, welcome back. We've got our outline here and we've let it dry. It's still a little tacky, but for the most part it's dry. So we're going to move forward. For this part, we're going to need our Elmer's clear glue and acrylic paints. I'm going to use 7 different colors actually. I've got blue and pink and aqua and purple. I'm going to add a little dark blue to the purple because I'd like that to be a little bit darker. Green, orange, and I've got this little tube of yellow that I'm going to be using. So to make these paints, let's get this back here. I've also got my jar of water and my brushes. So to make these, you're going to take your cup, and I'm using cut off or torn in half chopsticks to mix my paint. So you want a good several tablespoons of the clear glue. I got it up to about there. I've got it up to about there in my cup. And then we add just a little bit of the paint. You really only need a couple drops. So 1, 2, we'll say 3 drops. You can see. And then you can use toothpicks or chopsticks or whatever, plastic spoons, whatever you have on hand. You can see it stirs up nicely. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and make all of our colors. I'm going to take the top off because it's going to be a little easier to pour. So we got about that much paint or that much glue. Remember, we're using the clear glue because we want it to have a nice, shiny, crystal clear color when it dries so that it looks like stained glass. If you were to use the white glue, it would come out looking more like beach glass, which we made a couple weeks ago. You can find that video on our channel, the Manliest Library YouTube channel. I think I'm going to have to put a new bottle. Make sure we've got enough. We can always make more. Remember, you can always make more. So we've got blue. Make sure you're shaking up your paints nicely. Oop. A little bit of pink. A little bit of teal. A little bit of orange. A little bit of green. Ooh. There's that. A little bit of purple. And remember, I said I wanted to make this a little darker. So we're going to add the light purple and then just one drop of dark blue. And then I'm going to add a little bit of this yellow. Okay. We'll get those stirred up. You want to make sure they're mixed really well. And there's our pink. It's very bright. And this is our orange. And green. Went with nice spring colors. You could use any colors that you want to. Yellow. And finally our purple. Which is coming out nicely. Okay. And now you just paint. I'm going to start with the dragonfly. And I think that he will have teal wings. So get a little bit of your paint on your brush. And you're just going to paint inside your black lines. And you can use as much or as little paint as you want. The thicker it is, the longer it'll take to dry, but the more color there will be. You can see, I put this down on the white paper so you could see it. It's not a very nice day today, so I can't show you in the sun, but I can show you at the next meeting. And since we drew the black lines on with the glue bottle, that's going to act as kind of a barrier to stop the paint / glue from going into the next section and mixing together. And you can make swirls. Okay. And I think he'll have purple lower wings. And you just keep painting. Now, if you hadn't let your black dry, or whatever color you use for your outlines, you'd be pulling that color into your design now, and it would just kind of all blur together. But since we let that dry, it works as a nice barrier. And then let's say, oh, that's a nice bright pink. We'll give him a very bright pink tail. Now, as these dry, they're going to get even more transparent. so that when it's all done and you hold it up to the window or you hang it in the sun, it will look like actual stained glass. Now you can see in some of them, it's starting to pull away a little bit from the glass. You can always go back over it and repaint to make sure that it's covered completely the way you want it to be. Okay? I'm going to do that now, but you can also let it dry a little bit and then fill in the spots that weren't quite covered. Like that. Okay. Very important to make sure your glass is clean before you start this. Just to ensure that the paint sticks to it. Okay, we'll go back over these wings a little bit. All right, now let's make a nice flower. I think we'll give the flower a yellow center. There's that. And we'll make it a nice blue flower. I'm using the smaller brushes on the areas that are smaller and just kind of dropping the paint into it. And we'll let it dry. After this, you have to let it lay down flat and dry so that the paint doesn't run down, because it will. And then it won't matter how good your outlines are. Your paint will all just be a mess. Now, with practice, you can get your lines a lot thinner than I got mine. In fact, you may have gotten your lines a little thinner than I got mine. I'm gonna dip my cloth into the water and get that paint off there before it dries. Okay. Okay, so there's our flower. Then I think we'll paint our heart. And I'll show you what would happen if we didn't have barriers. We'll put pink there. And we'll put some teal. Oop, there we go. Okay. It will start to run in together. Which, if that's the effect that you're going for, can be kind of cool. But if it's not, then it's good to have the outline on there. And, well, just to keep it the same as the dragonfly, we'll put some purple on there. I am making a mess, as I do. This is why I always keep a cloth on hand when I'm doing art, or pretty much doing anything. Okay. These are acrylics, and it is school glue, so it is washable. If you get it on your hands, it will wash off. If you get it on your clothes, it may not. So it's good to be careful. Okay, and you can see kind of how the edges are starting to run in together. I'm going to add a little more purple here. It does want to edge away from the sides. Okay. And then we have our pretty designs here. Make sure your paint stays mixed. The green seems to have separated a little. Okay. Now, like the brushes that we used when we did the beach glass, these are washable. You can wash these paintbrushes off in soap and water. Then they should be fine to use again for anything. If you let them dry, you'll have to throw them away. Once the glue dries, unlike paint, you can't just add water and have it come out of a brush. It will ruin the brush. Okay. What color haven't we used? We haven't used yellow. So let's... Because yellow is always good for a nice spring painting. Okay. We'll add a little bit of pink to that. Just a little. So as you're going on, keep checking back at the work that you've already done. Oh, see, there my pink got over the barrier on either side, and that's going to end up blending in together. But that's okay, because it's just a abstract anyways. But keep an eye on the stuff that you've already done so that you know when you want to go in or when you should go in and kind of fill in the spots that have pulled away. Okay. Now, pardon me, if you want to do something completely abstract without any barriers at all, you can absolutely do that as well. And you just paint it on. So we'll add a little yellow. And again, you want to be careful not to mix your colors on the brush, because then you'll mix your colors in the paint pot, and you don't want that, unless you do want that. Some blue, a little purple. I got a little yellow in my purple, that's okay. And some pink, and you'll see that it will run itself together. Now if you take a look at the heart that I did without the barriers in the middle, it starts to get almost a tie-dye washed effect, which is really actually kind of pretty. Okay, I'll let you finish work on your stained glass. I am going to see what it will do on a bottle. This is absolutely an experiment because this is part I haven't done before. So I think that, like the beach glass that we did a couple weeks ago, you want to be careful because it will run down the bottle. but it's going to end up drying much clearer instead of the cloudy frosted look that we had with the beach glass. So I will get this painted. You get yours painted, and I'll meet you back here for a few final words.
Okay, welcome back. I have a few final notes about our stained glass projects today. You want to make sure that you let your work dry completely flat, or the paint will run, it will drip down the work. If you have done something like my little bottle here, which is running beautifully, the colors one into the next, make sure that you leave it on a piece of paper or newspaper so that it won't stain whatever it is dripping down onto. If you have done a piece like this, which, as I said, is just a piece of glass I took out of an old frame, once it's dry, you can put it back into the old frame and attach a chain or a string or a piece of rope, or have an adult help you, and you can hang it in a window and it'll look beautiful. Okay, that's it for today's Teen Time. Next week on Thursday at 4 o'clock, we will be making origami boxes. I'll have 2 different sizes of origami paper to show you, but you won't need actual origami paper. You can do it with any square piece of paper. And if you don't have any square paper, I'll actually show you how to make that. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've had a good time. I would love to see some of your projects. You can email those to me at lfinger@manliestlibrary.org. Thank you very much. Have a great week, and thanks for coming to Teen Time.